morning, everybody. It's me, Robert Phoenix, back on the case. And sorry I'm late. I was actually responding to Nora's comment over on Twitter. It's a case of mixed mediums, mixed mediums. Here's to our cup of scream, Orlando, black coffee all the way today. Christine, I thought about you last night, Christine. I was watching a video on YouTube or Twitter, and it was an Asian woman, and it was how the Asian woman was preparing a rabbit. I have to say, I haven't seen anything as uh, fucking cruel as her preparation of the rabbit. It was mind-boggling, actually. I'm not going to get into details, but I thought about you. And the weird part is that it starts off, of course, from our perspective, looking quite inhumane. But then by the time she's done and has prepared the rabbit, I have to say it looks fucking good. Right. So if all of a sudden you didn't know that she was preparing the rabbit in a way that would be considered, well, from our perspective, quite cruel, and the dish just showed up on your table. And I've had rabbit before, and it's actually it was quite delicious. Uh, you would say, "Hey, look at this, great rabbit, looks good, tastes good." Ah, but how did that rabbit get there? That is truly the question. Anyway, I hope everybody's having a good morning or good evening or good afternoon wherever you are, and we are going to get into the weather. And let's see what's today. Today is what, Thursday? Today's Thursday. I don't know. I don't know if I'll do a weather tomorrow. I definitely will not be doing a Friday forecast tomorrow. So we'll see. We'll play it by ear with the weather, but definitely no Friday forecast because I will be engaged with my mother's memorial this weekend. And fittingly enough, it seems to be scheduled for rain uh, in the area that we'll be at this weekend. So, what if you're going to have a memorial, it should be maybe raining is a good thing, right? Like sort of moody and a little gloomy and Piscean too. Honor that Piscean energy. Anyway, I'm just giving you the heads up for the schedule, and I think we should be able to have a show on Sunday. I think our travel will be behind us at that point. So there you go. There's the media forecast. Why don't we get into the Astro Weather and waste no more of your precious time? And it is good to have you here. All right, there we go. There she goes. So, what are the major movements in the heavens? Mars is now surpassed, moved across Saturn, and Mars is the lead dog in the Piscean two-step. I think I'm doing my first mini video for YouTube. I've actually uh, employed my son to make a short video on the Piscean nature of the Golden State Warriors. We'll see how that goes. So that's kind of cool, right? Little father son action. in the media creation world, and he seems to have some innate talent to do these sorts of things. So let's see what he cooks up. Today is how would I describe this energy? I would say it's kind of borderline. Uh, I wouldn't say fascistic, but it has that authoritarian vibe to it. A couple nights ago, I posted about Frank Sinatra and how, again, I think Frank Sinatra is one of the most evil people of the 20th century, based on a number of different things, not uh, withstanding or not being solely exclusive of his behavior with the Rat Pack, but also his deliberate fixing of the election of 1960 to get John F. Kennedy elected as president of the United States, which we all know how that turned out. And there's other things with Sinatra that are pretty grimy. But I use two examples of what I would consider to be evil, and I said Frank Sinatra was right up there with them. And one of the examples I will cover today, the other example was Aleister Crowley, and I think Crowley is really a mixed character. Like there are some very dark aspects to Crowley. Like you cannot, I think, have an informed conversation about Crowley without understanding that there is a period of his life where things get fairly dark, right? But it's Crowley's one of those guys that a lot of people in the esoteric and occult and magical community hold in really high esteem. And I think Crowley was brilliant. He was a major magus. He understood astrology. Like he's a great astrologer, and he has very interesting thoughts and ideas uh, about society and culture, which don't often get talked about. So, in some regard, Crowley is like the real deal. He's a very interesting thinker, and he's trying to work out the magical formula where the individual is able to use the elements at their disposal in order to create or bend reality, right? This is really sort of the premise of Thelemite magic. Uh, but there were people who were, because I use Crowley as an example, were all up in arms. Like, you don't really mean that, do you? I'm like, well, look, are there other people more evil than Crowley? Like, if we're looking at a scale of evil, like where does Hillary Clinton stand on the evil scale next to Crowley? I mean, it's an interesting conversation to have. But it was like, oh my God, I crossed a sacred cow for some of you people. And I'm actually Crowley neutral, to be honest with you. Um, and I was just using it as a comparison because a lot of people would use Crowley as a comparison. Maybe I should have said Charlie Manson. Who knows? But anyway, it was that Saturn Mars conjunction where people got very in their feelings about what I was saying about Crowley. Not everybody, but some people were. I'm like, oh, right. Saturn is the magus, right? Saturn is the magus. And Mars was evoking this strong response. So I didn't have to really walk it back. I said, look, it's a symbolic comparison. But here we have Mars out in front of Saturn. And today is a day, I believe, of strong emotion even if Saturn limits the expression of motion or emotion, uh, this feels very militant in a lot of ways. Like we're moving, and it's not all bad though, right? I want to be upfront here. This is not all bad because one of the things that I've been witnessing with this Saturn Mars conjunction, and maybe now with Mars out in front of Saturn, is I've been noticing a major sea change when talking about things like Israel or APAC or or any other Israeli lobby, the ADL, Ben Shapiro. All of a sudden now, there are many voices starting to chirp about the hypocrisy, the incongruities, the inconsistencies around the arguments that are being used to contain what we would call free discourse or free speech. So that plus what's been happening in Israel when it comes to the footage of the Flower Massacre, which is brutal if you haven't seen this. And they haven't even caught up to the kitchen killings, which took place after the Flower Massacre. All of a sudden, the scales are dropping from people's eyes. And we already went through the Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Michael Knowles passion play. But this question about whether or not you can question another country and a country who is feverishly working through American politicians to pass laws that forbid you to question that country, well, that's kind of a big thing. It basically is saying that we as Americans have no right to question another country and what they're doing, even when they're getting billions of dollars from this country and you, the taxpayer, to do whatever they want to do with that money, by the way, without any obligation to repay said loan or debt. And if that's not gaslighting, I don't know what is. It's like being in an abusive relationship where the person does whatever they want, humiliates you consistently. And when you ask them not to do something, because this is what, theoretically we do as people, we have boundaries. And you ask that person not to do something and they continue to do it and basically flip their middle finger at you. And then they tell you that you cannot bring it up in a conversation. That you can't think about being in a relationship where the person that you're in the relationship with says, no, we're not going to talk about it. In fact, I've got a little piece of paper here. It's like a little family agreement. And you're going to sign this little piece of paper that whenever anything I do is called into question, if you bring it up, really what you're doing is you're being aggressive and you're aiming your animus towards me in a way that is hateful. And there is no way we can even have a discussion about any dynamic or behavior because the first words out of your mouth are accusatory and hateful. And I just can't respond to that. Imagine being in a relationship like that. It would be insane. Essentially what you'd be doing is just be signing your life over to this person who would constantly abuse you. And whenever you would bring it up, they'd have that little piece of paper right there. Remember you said you signed this, so shut the fuck up. Well, this is changing now. And I really feel like, part of this is also connected to this Saturn Mars conjunction. Now, the other side of this is that we apparently, and I haven't done a follow up, apparently there was a shooting at a mosque yesterday in Philadelphia. So again, we're getting into Saturn Mars territory. Remember, Mars was just exactly conjunct Saturn. We talked about the three Abrahamic faiths and one of them was literally clearly under fire. And we don't know the details, but we do know that when things like this happen, it's usually not as cut and dried and black and white on the surface as they would like us to believe. Like the lone gunman, the single bullet theory, right? So today, I believe there's more aggression in the air, and it's more, uh, and it's coming from, again, just from this collective perspective. It's coming from two different directions. Number one, the people are like fucking tired here. It's like we can't talk about these things, or we can't address these things, and we've been involved in, for the most part, a major gaslighting operation for the last 4 years. When you look at whatever this Biden thing is, and most of us know that there are people behind the ice cream eating puppet. Uh, it's been nothing but gaslighting. Just watch Karine Jean-Pierre's press conferences. Gaslight, gaslight, gaslight. The gaslighting occurs also on the mainstream media. And it's interesting because when we think of Pisces, we think of things like oil and water and alcohol and gas. So to me, this is combustible. And the real combustibility is on its way. Now we're bringing the moon into the discussion. So we have the moon in chirpy chatty Gemini, right? Everybody's got something to say. Everybody has something to say, and watch out for a lot of verbal processing today. I think initially it's good because of the degree of the moon in relationship to Mars Saturn, right? It's kind of right there, sort of on the kind of the outlier because of the conjunction with Uranus. Clearly, there's a moon Pluto trine today. So being able to talk about things is cathartic. Like, this is a good day to have conversations and to be able to mirror another person's experience, whether it's intentional or unintentional, right? Because we get into the mirror space with the moon in Gemini. Now, tomorrow, of course, on Fridays, they're always interesting news days. The moon moves into a square with Mars and Saturn. I don't like to talk about false flags or psychological operations, but tomorrow is kind of prime territory. Maybe even later today, as this moon moves into square, right, and we get into a lot of this sort of religious zealotry and propaganda, and that happens. So, like, when a certain group feels as though they're what's the word I'm looking for? That they are not just aggrieved, but they're overly aggrieved. A lot of times these groups will create situations where their best case scenario or their best strategy is to look like a victim. And that's where we get into false flag psychological operations, because one side of those events, creates victims and martyrs, and the other side creates perpetrators and villains. So we're headed into a kind of a tricky territory here with the moon. It's more tomorrow than it is today. Now, the other thing with the moon in Gemini, as it moves into square with Mars Saturn, is argumentation and debate. Debate is good. Debate is good. Being able to argue is good. Being able to argue and debate civilly on the edge of intensity is not a bad thing. However, that said, when you get into this mutable square, right, and the thing about mutability is that it happens quickly and then it dies down. Like, it doesn't last long. The effects of it can linger, but it's not like something that's much more fixed. and it's entrenched. So I would say that tomorrow, just in terms of news and information and stimuli, is off the charts. And what's also interesting is that I don't know if you guys follow this stuff at all, but Rabbi Shmuley, the great Rabbi Shmuley, the man who is the moral compass for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as his spiritual advisor and many others, has decided that he wants to debate Nick Fuentes. Now, I truly hope this happens just for the spectacle. But that's where we're at, right? With this moon in Gemini. And, Shmuley is a rabbi. We're into kind of rabbinical territory here with Saturn and Pisces, priests, rabbis, imams. I would say more of those than monks. To me, monks are more Virgo. But that said, right, this is the energy that's coming up. It's all about debate, and there's a lot of friction. And I think it could be good if you're, looking to release some tension here. I, I I'm looking forward to it. Not the debate. I'm just looking forward to this moon square to Mars and Saturn. Now, in your own life, right, in your own life, there's probably a pretty good chance that you'll have a sort of a minor chord of that experience. And again, if the idea is to bring conflict out into the open, and discuss the conflict and move on from the conflict, it's not a bad thing. That said, the worst thing you can do is to open up the conflict, open up a little tension release, and then not necessarily resolve it. So it helps to resolve the conflict. And you can, if we just follow the course of the moon and through this lunar cycle in Gemini, it moves into Cancer, and eventually it hooks up with Mars, Saturn again, and now we have a trine, and that's when we hug it out, right? It's like, oh yeah, we're all family. But it's that in between period, that 48-hour cycle with the moon squaring up against Mars, Saturn, which I think is potentially problematic, but not problematic in a bad way. I think the moon in Gemini offers interesting opportunities to kind of, put a mirror up and echo back and forth what another person's experience is, right? So this is quite interesting. I also think when we look at the moon here in Gemini, uh, who was it? Something happened to Jerome Powell, like he was caught on tape or something. He's the head of the Fed, and I wonder if it's going to come out here with this Moon Mars Saturn square, that the things that he was talking about basically jeopardizes his. I mean, what does he really do? He just kind of waves his hand over things, right? Other people are really telling him what to do. He's not the uh, economical mastermind of the central bank, right? He's more. I tend to think a lot of these people is just kind of errand boys and errand girls, like Janet Yellen's errand girl. If you ever listen to Janet Yellen, I mean, my God, she's about 2 or 3 degrees away from dementia. It's like how she manages to somehow be adequately engaged in the economy and policy is beyond me. So again, today, we've got this Moon Pluto trine, and people are, I believe, confident in sharing what they feel. It's like, I know what I'm talking about. Know what I'm talking about. And it's not bad. I think it's a good thing. It's a very good. There's a lot of verbal activity today getting worked out. It's tomorrow and the day after where the fireworks go off. Okay, what else do we have? Let's see. Yes, Peaches. I know. What do you got going on here? Where's your moon? Do you have moon in Gemini? This cat talks a lot. You have moon in Gemini? You got my attention. You got their attention. Okay. As soon as I start talking, she'll be back into it. So here we go. Today, Mercury, Sun, Aries, Kazimi, Kazimi. Look, who you are, how you think, and how you act, they're all one. All one. Today is all about integration. Today, you are a beam of light in the mind of God. So act with purpose. Do not hesitate. Do not equivocate. Today is one of those days where be focused, be self determined, and don't be afraid to make choices. It's not really a Libra sort of day. It's not a, hey, how do you feel? Now, with the moon in Gemini, it's a little bit different. There's not like a lot of how you feel with the moon in Gemini. Again, it's more like a mirror. You're putting the mirror up to the other person. Really, what you're seeing are aspects of yourself. That's how the moon in Gemini works. Gemini in general works, right? With Libra, you'll see the self, but really you'll see the other more. That's how today's not a Libra day. Today is an Aries day. So what do I mean by that? Today is you're not really looking for permission today. Not that you have to step on somebody's toes, violate their personal rights, right? You don't have to. You don't have to go down that path. But you also don't have to ask for permission. Today, you do what you need to do and get it done. And do not hesitate and do not equivocate. Now, both the Sun and Mercury are squaring Pluto. Those squares are going to be much more evident as both of them move into Taurus. So we're talking by degree and not by uh, the fixed element that's going to come into play in roughly about a week, right? So we're not into that intense place where what you say and how you activate and what you do has deep, resounding, and reverberating circumstances. We'll talk more about that as we approach it. But there is that kind of angular tension. So I'm gonna give you another way to look at this. There are really, in my estimation, there are three signs. We'll go four signs that are into power. One is Scorpio. Scorpio is very into power. Capricorn is into power. Leo is into power, and Aries is into power. Those are the four signs that are the most motivated by power. So we talk about this idea of being empowered or getting our power back. Well, the power never really left, right? The power was always there. What happened if you have become disempowered or feel like you are not in full possession of your expression or manifestation of will is that you did something along the way to cancel or negate your ability to understand that you have this power within you. So it's either a mental block or an emotional block or some kind of contract that you have either consciously or unconsciously agreed to with another person, which theoretically would be holding you back. we're in a phase where if you are wanting to um, assert yourself, right, or and do something where it feels like you're quote unquote getting your power back. Today is one of those days. What's the saying? Fortune favors the bold. So, don't be a wallflower today. Don't hold back. And this goes into, any area of your life. Any area. It doesn't have to be one specific thing. It could be any area of your life. Let's say you have an affection for somebody that you've been sitting on for a long time, and that person doesn't know how you feel. Like, how would you like to go through your life having a strong feeling about a person in a good way, and never being able to tell that person? It's not something you want to take with you, right? And that's just one example. Today is one of those days, right? 22, 22. We're kind of in the master number range where you take possession and you engage in a way that is powerful, right? This is, these are the master builder 22. This is world building numbers and strength. So if you have to take the lead today, take the lead. Take the lead in your own life. And I think this square has a lot to do with, you could call it the reclamation of power, but it's really removing the things that were there to obstruct the thing that's always been there, but you just couldn't access it. Never went away. It was always there. So remember, fortune favors the bold. And even with Venus, the sextile with Pluto, again, in the realm of interpersonal relationships, you know, Venus in Aries is, I want it now. Right? Let's do it now. That's Venus in Aries. So today's spicy. It's a spicy day. It's definitely a spicy day. And I think the real fireworks uh, starting tomorrow with that moon square with Mars and Saturn. Ooh boy, is the news cycle going to be chatty? A lot to talk about. All right, let's get into our True Hemp Science star of the day. And you know the score with True Hemp Science. Our good friend Chris over at True Hemp Science, also as THS, creates some of the best CBD that you'll run across. And the reason why, I always say this every day, it's organically sourced. That is the most important thing. You've got to start with good ingredients. Number two, he is a master alchemist and does things with the hemp plant that other people just don't do. And I guarantee you that his latest line of elixirs, I keep trying to get him on here, we just keep sort of missing, are taking CBD to the next level. Right. So if you're interested, go to truehempscience.com, check out all the products. You spend $100 or more, type in 15MINS, and you will get a free goodie bag with all kinds of neat little stuff in there to sample and experience more of the CBD journey. $150 get you free shipping, always a 30-day money-back guarantee. And you can go there and make an appointment to speak with Chris, and he'll help you with all of your CBD choices. All right, let's get into our True Hemp Science star of the day. This is one of the guys that I referenced in my Sinatra tweet, and it's Anton LaVey. Ah, yes, Anton LaVey, the head of the Church of Satan. Look at those ears. He's got some big fucking ears. an interesting character, and again, one of these people that influences the 20th century to a large degree. Without Anton LaVey, there's no Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manson and Anton LaVey were tight, they were buddies, and without Anton LaVey, we don't have the Satanist edition of Sammy Davis Jr. I mean, he had his fingers in Hollywood. He Marilyn, not just Marilyn Monroe was an early, what would you call her? An early protege of Anton LaVey. He used to be a piano player at a blues and jazz club in Kansas City, and that's when a young Marilyn Monroe came by to sing. And of course, Marilyn Monroe screwed everybody. So Anton LaVey screwing Marilyn Monroe was, no great shakes. Jane Mansfield was a member of the Church of Satan, right? Jane Mansfield was a big member of the Church of Satan. And, there's this strange story about how Mansfield, again, who slept with everybody, hooked up with this lawyer, and the lawyer became her manager. Sleazy guy. Can you believe that? Sleazy guy. And started to make threats to Anton LaVey. And I think he didn't want Jane Mansfield to be associated with the Church of Satan any longer. And so he was making these threats against Anton LaVey. And then mysteriously, one night on her way from New Orleans to, I think, someplace like Lafayette or Baton Rouge or whatever, late at night in her car with her lawyer, lover, and her two kids, she gets in a car accident and is essentially beheaded. Like part of the engine block flew off and beheaded Jane Mansfield. Right. Some people believe that Anton LaVey was somehow responsible for putting a curse on the driver, who was the lawyer. I think they might have been married at that point. But again, the reason I'm saying this is because Anton LaVey plays this huge role. And somebody on Twitter castigated me. Well, they didn't do all this killing that the United States government did. Well, one of the members of the Church of Satan was Michael Aquino. And Michael Aquino decided he wanted to go even more hardcore than Anton LaVey. So he started the Temple of Set. Michael Aquino was he was in the United States Army. And he was a psychological operations specialist and deeply embedded in things like Project Phoenix. So, when you start to look at these people and you look at the influences that they have, maybe Anton LaVey was not responsible for the death and murder of, I don't know, thousands of Libyans like Hillary Clinton was. But that doesn't mean that their actions don't have a butterfly effect on other people that do. So I looked at his chart. I'm like, okay, well, where is the evil? Like, or where is the Satanism, the do as thou will in his chart? Well, it's in there. First of all, he's got a Sun Uranus conjunction. Makes him rebellious. Who do we know that's rebellious? Well, Lucifer's rebellious. Satan's rebellious. So he's literally just acting out his rebellion, and it's in Aries, right? Like I think when you have a Sun Uranus conjunction, maybe you have a Sun Uranus conjunction in Virgo, it's a lot different than a Sun Uranus conjunction in Aries. Just saying, right? A Sun Uranus conjunction in Virgo would be like an alternative healer that would say, fuck you to the AMA. The Sun Uranus conjunction in Aries, different story, because you're dealing with the human being, Aries, the expression of will, right? And it's a bit of a wide conjunction, but man, it's right in there. And he also has Mercury on the other side. Mercury's in Taurus. So the whole Taurus part is very earthly. Do you know what I mean? Like, Lucifer is the prince of the air and Satan is the prince of the earth. And he's got a ton of earth. LaVey's got a lot of earth in his chart. Now, what I find fascinating is that he's got this south node in Scorpio. And this is the past, right? Theoretical past life. The dude's been a warlock. Like he's been a warlock. He understands intuitively how to access magic, the occult, sex magic, etc. So the idea is that with the true node in Taurus, yeah, you're supposed to be more grounded and more, again, I'll use the word earthly, right? Or earthy and earthly. If the true node in Scorpio is a dishonest day's work, and I'm not saying it is, but I'm just giving you an example, then the true node in Taurus would be an honest day's work. And that's really what he's supposed to be doing, especially in the second house. That said, there are other factors involved here. Was he living his true node? Or was he over here in that south node, the crucible in the 8th house? One can make a case that that's where the guy was living from. And maybe as a result, was not engaged in really the true evolutionary spirit of his chart. Everything gets thrown into a blender, though, with that Sun Uranus conjunction. So, of course, he's going to be rebellious. Now, what does it do? Well, first of all, squares Pluto. You got a Sun Pluto square. Well, you're going to be into power, right? And Aries is all about the will. I think there's a little do as thou will here with Mr. LaVey. So Sun Pluto square is all about power. Now, when we get to the end of LaVey's life, you'll see that maybe he truly didn't understand the power that he was working with. And I would say that the Sun Pluto square would be the acquisition of power at any cost. And then he has the Sun Saturn square, and then Uranus in there is squaring as well. So what is that? What's that all about? Look at that. He has the same degree of Saturn as I do. Ooh. Ooh. Again, that's rebellion. He's going to rebel against structures and hierarchies. And we can see it, right? Like this is kind of how the guy is wired. Now, how it becomes manifest in Satanism, well, I think, life is a long and winding road. But I feel like the kind of the secret codec is the South Node in Scorpio. Like that's really what he's tapping into, right? He's an Aquarius rising. So again, he's going to be rebellious and yeah, and I think he's probably, I think if you sat down and had a conversation with Anton LaVey with an Aquarius rising, you probably say, what the fuck's the big deal? He seems like a nice guy. He seems friendly, right? Yeah, Maybe, because Aquarius rising people will come off that way. They're very non-judgmental, except in certain key areas that sort of violate their own ideological underpinnings. He's got Mars in Cancer. I'm sorry, Pisces. So he was a bit of an artist. He could play piano. He could play organ. And then he's got a Mars Pluto sextile. So again, power is a theme here. And Mars in Pisces, you know, again, I think it's kind of magical, right? Kind of creative. When I think of Mars and Pisces, I think of um, sort of like summoning, the spirits of water and the ocean, right? It's sort of like, the magic wand and sort of this elemental, command over water in some ways, and using and funneling emotion to sort of, push the narrative or push the energy. Mars in Pisces is really powerful. Like once it gets going, look out. Now he's got this moon in Virgo, which to me is quite surprising in a lot of ways. It's not quite a full moon, but it's almost a full moon. And how would that look in LaVey's life? I mean, I suppose it would look something along the lines that he would have some degree of perfectionism, right? When it came to the attention to maybe ceremonial magic or detail or whatever. But, the moon is also the mother. And anybody that's got a moon in Virgo, 9 times out of 10, has a very critical and judgmental mother. So I wonder if LaVey was, sort of the subject of that and didn't like it, especially with Mars on the other side of it in Pisces. It's a very odd placement for the moon in a lot of ways. Neptune in the seventh house, so his relationships are going to be fluid to say the least. And Jupiter in Gemini, with the aforementioned Gemini, and down here in the fourth house. So when we look at the fourth house as like an abode or a place to live, it's sort of like, well, look, it's my home, but it also happens to be the Church of Satan. Um, Here's my kitchen, and oh, here's where we keep the vials of blood and the mugwort and the bat and all the other things that go along with our. You know what I mean? I mean that's like Jupiter and Gemini in the fourth house. Wherever you live in, it's a multi-purpose operation. And he's got a Mars square Jupiter in his chart, so he's clearly willing to take risks at times. Now, he does not have a good end game at all. And so the story goes that LaVey, at the end of his life, knowing that he is about to exit this mortal coil, has a glimpse as to where he's going. He's not happy. He's not happy. He was apparently losing his shit and freaking out as he was, getting the tour guide of the place he was about to enter. It's not, he's not the first person who's had that experience. Stalin was very similar. Apparently, Stalin on his deathbed completely lost his shit because he saw where it was going. Right? It's like God says, you know what? Coming attractions. Here you go. And it's there just so the people around that person can witness who they were in this moment of peril, the chapel perilous. There you go. There's your True Hemp Science star of the day, Anton LaVey. I knew his niece, by the way. I went to junior high school with her. She used to walk around with the little satanic Bible in paperback. She was a nice girl. Weird, right? Misguided, I would say. Misguided, but nice, cute too. Anyway, there you go. Come join us over on 15 Minutes. Link in the chat. We'll be talking about the great pivot that seems to be upon us. And that's it. Have a wonderful day. God bless. And maybe weather tomorrow, maybe not. Depends. In any case, I'll see you Sunday night for sure. All right. Take care. Bye for now.